Hey friends, Charlie Crimebuster here, and Santa, well, he's been naughty again. Well, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to have some updates and comments on the two high-profile trials. That was the trial of Rittenhouse and of Arbery. And there's going to be some news you can use. All of this and more on this Charlie Show, the fastest minutes in crime talk. Well, hello and welcome to today's show, and thank you for joining us. Hey, I hope your Thanksgiving was a good one. We appreciate each listener, and we want to welcome those who are joining us for the very first time. Every week, we pick up new listeners, and we say a hearty welcome to you. Again, we're thankful for listeners from the East Coast to the West Coast. Hey, please, if you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, do so. You can reach us on a number of podcast platforms, or if you need help subscribing, give us an email. You can email me directly, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Also, if you have comments, suggestions, and even ideas about a podcast subject, please take time to reach out to me at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Now, speaking of Thanksgiving, well, Ahmaud Arbery's parents, well, they had a bittersweet one. They, of course, are facing another Thanksgiving without their beloved son. Their beloved son, who was gunned down while on a jog near Brunswick, Georgia. The people who were chasing after him, well, they thought he was a criminal. Well, others knew him just to be a young black man jogging in the neighborhood. Well, the jury came back this past week, and just like I successfully predicted the Rittenhouse verdict and what happened to Brian Laundrie and even before that, Lori Vallow. Well, unfortunately, I got this one right as well, and I'm not going to say unfortunately on this because I agree with the jury on this one. They pronounced guilty verdicts on all three men charged with his murder. Now, that verdict was delivered on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. That's when they found three white men charged in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man, guilty. They were guilty on multiple murder charges as well as other charges. Now, serving on that jury were 9 white women, 2 white men, and 1 black man. And they came back with a verdict after more than 11 hours of deliberation over 2 days. That followed 8 days of testimony involving 23 witnesses. Travis McMichael, who fatally shot Arbery, is guilty on all charges, and those charges include malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit a felony. Now, his father, Gregory McMichael, he was the one who rode armed in the bed of the pickup as his son pursued Arbery. Well, he's not guilty of malice murder, but he is guilty, get this, on the other 8 charges. And the neighbor, William Roddy Bryan Jr., he was the neighbor who joined the pursuit, and he filmed Arbery's final moments. Well, he's guilty of 3 counts of felony murder, 1 count of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit a felony. Now, Bryan, he was cleared on the charge of malice murder, felony murder, involving aggravated assault with a firearm, and the count of aggravated assault with a firearm. Now, remember last week I did say and predict that Bryan would be found guilty, but that some of his charges would be less than the father and son's charges. You see, the defense was that they were attempting to make a citizen's arrest. That's when Arbery tried to take the shotgun away from Travis McMichael. But as I stated on the last podcast, while the McMichaels, well, they may have had reason for mere suspicion, they were no way near the reasonable suspicion or probable cause for what is called a citizen's arrest there in Georgia, or really any other kind of arrest. Therefore, the privilege of self-defense, you see, that would not be available by law in Georgia Because you see, the actions of the armed man chasing down an unarmed man without cause, well, had they not commenced those actions, the killing would not have occurred. Now, both McMichael's and Brian's attorneys announced that they would appeal the verdicts. Meanwhile, the sentencing date has not yet been set. But let me remind you that on all of those charges, all three of those men will face at least life in prison. Now, I have something important to say about this and about the recent trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. These were two national trials that got a whole lot of attention these past 30 days. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but right now, it is time for us to recognize what we call our courageous citizen of the week here at Charlie Crimebuster. This one happened right here in Florida. There was a woman who was sitting alone in her car. That was during the early morning hours back July the 27th. It was here in Sebring, Florida. She was there in a parking lot. While she was there, she was approached by 4 masked men. Now, one of the men allegedly pointed a gun at her, demanded that she exit the vehicle and give him her purse and phone. Then a second masked man reportedly opened the passenger door, and he began to fumble through her belongings while demanding her wallet, her phone, her keys. Well, the woman, she engaged in a brief struggle with the man in her car, and then she drew her firearm. Now, the other armed man was still pointing his gun at her and was walking closer to the car. So she fired one shot toward him, and then all the assailants, they took off running. Well, other robberies were reported in the same area, and the suspects are still being sought by police. So if you know anything about that, please get a hold of the authorities. You can reach them down there in Tampa Bay, Florida. Well, now, my friend, studies do indicate, now get this, studies indicate that firearms are used in more than 2 million times a year for personal protection, and that the presence of a firearm, even without a shot being fired, what prevents crimes in many instances. But we should say to you, and especially after this trial, you should take really caution. Shooting usually can be justified only when a crime constitutes an immediate imminent threat to life, limb, or in some cases, property. My friend, you need to be careful. Only use your weapon at a very, very last resort, and never engage in activities like the McMichaels did when you don't have reason to be engaged in those activities. Well, this lady there in Sebring, Florida, who was accosted by 5 men, masked men, one of them with a weapon. She decided she would not be a victim. She decided to fight back. She carried a weapon. She used that weapon to fight back. And that, my friend, that is today's Charlie Crimebuster's Courageous Citizen of the Week. Now, we're going to discuss some Santa Claus crime with Christmas crime tips, but first, back to self-defense that the McMichaels were not allowed to claim successfully. Let me explain it to you this way for those who may yet be confused. You see, I can't go to try to rob a 7-Eleven with a weapon, and then a clerk pulls a gun and I shoot him in self-defense. See, I can't act in self-defense because I was responsible for the set of circumstances that caused him to pull the weapon in the first place. The same way the McMichaels were not allowed to use self-defense because their chase of Arbery and the confrontation, you see, they just did not have the right to attempt to detain Arbery. Proof appeared that they were not merely trying to follow Arbery, well, they were trying to stop and hold him until the police got there. That was even according to their story. And you see, they only had mere suspicion of crimes in the neighborhood. Therefore, they did not have probable cause for a citizen arrest that was legal in Georgia at the time of the incident. Now, that law has since been stricken in Georgia, and now there is no longer a citizen arrest law in the state. Now, again, later, I want to share with you some very valuable lessons regarding us all. And I'm going to take those lessons from the Rittenhouse trial, where Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty because he did use his weapon in self-defense, and the Arbery trial, and where they were found guilty. But first, now, let's talk about naughty Santa Clauses. You see, in this Santa, well, he did not attempt to rob a 7-Eleven, but in his Christmas activities, well, it was the season to rob. Yep, the season to rob you. You see, witnesses were shocked when a man dressed in a full Santa suit, including the beard, the belly, the hat, and had a pair of black Ray-Bans on, sunglasses. Well, he pulled a weapon out of his present sack, and he demanded money from a teller. Now, several people at the scene, well, they said he was jolly and jovial at the same time, and he remained completely in character as Santa. He even told the patrons that he was just getting some money to, quote, unquote, pay his elves. How fun! Well, it got serious when Santa said that he would return to the bank and terminate, that means kill, everyone in sight if it turned up that there were die packs in the money. Santa's getting more naughty as it goes along, right? Well, there was a naughty Santa Claus who robbed a bank. Well, let's talk about being safe now. Let's talk about being safe in one of the most popular activities of the holidays. Well, what is it? Is it hanging a wreath? Drinking eggnog? Putting up a Christmas tree? Well, no. The most popular activity, well, it's shopping, plain and simple. You see, in the United States, it's been calculated that a quarter of all personal spending, well, it takes place during the Christmas holiday, the shopping season. You see, there is considerable momentum heading into the holiday season. NRF President and CEO Matthew Shea said that in a statement. He says that in the holiday average for coming up in 2021, the spending is going to be an average of $1,463 per household. That's from November to January. That's up 5%. 5%. You see, last year it was $1,387. This year it's $1,463. But we still have that big pandemic we're dealing with, and that, my friend, is 7% less than the estimate for 2019. However, there are some fears this year about our shopping activities. It seems that 45% of our consumers, well, they say their biggest fear this holiday season is out-of-stock products. And 38% of consumers, well, they say delivery delays are their greatest concern. And, of course, 42% of consumers, well, they expect products to be more expensive this year. Well, there's still going to be a lot of money spent and a lot of shopping. So there'll also be time for a lot of crime. And Charlie, well, we want you to be safe this holiday, so along with our naughty Santa Claus reporting, we're going to give you some safety tips, and we're going to teach you how to be safe during your shopping. Here's just a few of the tips we've picked up through the years. First of all, try, if at all possible, to shop during daylight hours. And if you can, shop with a friend. Remember, there is safety in numbers. And of course, the biggie, always be aware of your surroundings. Pay attention to who is around you, what they are doing, and what activities are going on. Please be aware if someone is watching you or following you. You should notice who is around you. Also, don't overload your arms with packages and bags while shopping. You see, clear visibility and freedom and movement, that's very important, and they are self-protection habits. And don't forget, pick your parking spot wisely. Look for a well-lit area. If you own a small car, well, try not to park it up next to a large vehicle. That can block your vision or either block other citizens' view of you while you're entering and exiting your vehicle. And it also needs to be said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but do not leave your vehicle unattended while the engine is running. That's even if you're going to be away from it for a mere few seconds. There are some shopping tips for all of you folks out there who are getting in the Christmas spirit on with your shopping. Well, here's another naughty Santa story. This one comes us from the UK. In fact, children were heartbroken. They were heartbroken because they witnessed Santa being naughty. You see, this happened when he showed up. Santa's sleigh showed up at a parade event that was there in the UK in Norfolk. A man dressed in a Santa suit, well, he kind of got into a conflict with a local teen. Well, then someone finally called the police. And the police say, well, the children are understandably concerned and upset at seeing what they thought was the real Santa being arrested. That's what an officer said at the scene. And Norfolk police, well, they're certain, they say, that the real Santa would not approve of people behaving this way. And, of course, they let the children know he will continue his pre-Christmas visits, and he will deliver gifts everywhere on Christmas Day. There's another naughty Santa who probably had an anger management issue. Hey, along with your shopping, there's probably going to be some holiday parties that you go to, so we got to give you a little bit of advice, some safety tips about holiday parties. I guess you already know what the number one is, don't you? Yep, that's right. Be careful about your alcohol intake. A lot of people find that Christmas stops being very merry when you've had too much to drink. A DUI can wreck your reputation, wreck your life, and even destroy other lives. So make sure you have a designated non-drinking friend with you at your party. Never leave your drink unattended, because that's a good time for somebody to spike it with the idea of doing something harmful to you later. Make sure that you realize that if you're by yourself without friends around you who are non-drinkers, well, you're going to be a very easy target for someone. So take our advice. Be careful about drugs and drinking during the holiday season, especially if you're driving and even if you're attending parties. Don't forget that you can become a victim very, very easily. Now, we've been talking about our naughty Santas, and going right along with this one is another one, and this one is that Santa had too much eggnog. That is the spiked variety. You see, children and parents alike, they were terrified when a man dressed as Santa Claus, well, he began traumatizing the neighborhood. He was yelling at the kids, "Have you seen my reindeer? If you see my reindeer, call me right away." That's what Tina Reinhardt, a concerned parent, said. She said, though, that the kids in the neighborhood, well, they were not fooled. You see, they knew that this man couldn't possibly be the real Santa. He smelled like alcohol. So I knew he wasn't the real Santa, because the real Santa doesn't drink alcohol. That's what 9-year-old Katie Dockery said. Well, Tom Arnold, the man in the Santa suit, he was detained for disorderly conduct and taken away by police officers. Police believe that he was on his way home from a holiday party, and he really meant no ill will towards the people that he scared. You see, Arnold was simply wasted, and he was trying to spread good cheer. So there's our Santa Claus who had just a little bit of too much eggnog of the spiked kind. Back to this idea of being careful about when you're shopping. Do not leave your vehicle unattended while the car is running, again, as you're only going to be away for a few seconds. But here's another one along with that. When you're going to your vehicle, have your keys out and ready when you're approaching the vehicle. Also, be careful how you carry your purse or wallet. Would it be easy for someone to take it? Also, remove unnecessary items. Leave those at home. Try to carry only the amount of cash you'll need to make your purchases, and limit the number of credit cards, only to those necessary for your current shopping trip for that day. Hey, another good idea. Keep a list. Keep a list of all credit cards, along with the contact phone numbers for each card. Keep those in a safe place. This can help you in the event if they are lost or they are stolen. Here's another thing about Christmas that you need to be aware of, especially you parents. Discuss various situations with your children. What will they do if you're separated? What will they do if they get approached by a stranger? What will you do? You see, it's good to practice an exercise that often we use in law enforcement and even the military, and they call it crisis rehearsal. You see, consider what you would do in various stressful situations. Go through that plan in your mind. If you practice this and then you're faced with an unusual situation, well, you will then be able to think more clearly and you react more calmly because you see you already have a rehearsed plan of how to handle it. Just some more tips, holiday tips to keep you safe here at Charlie Crimebuster. Well, we're going to have some more news about Santa. I'm going to tell you some lessons we can learn from the Rittenhouse Trial and the Arbery Trial in a moment. But now it's time for what we call our Crazy Crook story of the week. Our Crazy Crook story today comes from Illinois. You see, obviously, the idea to rob a bank crossed this Illinois resident's mind, but he did not think very logically through the entire situation. It appears that the 40-year-old man, well, he walked into the bank, and he handed the cashier a threatening note, and it read this: "Be quick or be quit." He meant to say quite. Meant to say be quick and be quiet, but he misspelled quite and said be quick, be quit. And then he goes on to say in the note, "Give your cash or I'll shoot." Well, the bank teller did oblige. She handed him $400. But the thief, it appears that he had overlooked the fact that his message was scribbled on a piece of his pay slip. That's right, his pay slip. And as you can guess, detectives found the other half of the pay slip just outside the bank. That's complete with the bank robber's name and home address. And that, my friend, is our Charlie Crimebuster Crazy Crook of the Week. Our next naughty Santa, well, he accidentally kidnapped a little girl. Yep, this Santa Claus was in for a world of trouble when he got arrested for taking an 8-year-old girl, but he swears that he didn't mean to take her. He was just caught up in the holiday spirit. You see, a young girl was waiting with her family outside of a gas station in Augusta, Georgia, when a man in a Santa suit asked her if she wanted to ride in his motorcycle. You see, the man, John Michael Barton, he had a giant blow-up reindeer in his sidecar, and that prompted the girl to accept the ride. Well, the two took off down the road with her father racing after them. Barton pulled over, and he did return the girl, claiming that he wasn't aware that she didn't have permission to go for a ride. "I was in the Santa mode," that's what Barton said of the incident. "It was a mistake, a terrible mistake on my part, and I should have checked which child was with the adult." Well, and then, my friend, in just a moment, I'm going to share with you the worst Santa crime of all. That's right, the worst one. But now it's time for us to give you a few more tips on about how to be safe during the holiday time. Well, let's talk about your home. Make sure you have secondary locks on your windows and doors, that you got deadbolts, dowels, that sort of thing. Make sure you light the exterior of your home around the doors, windows, and driveway. Trim those hedges and bushes and trees around the doors and windows. People can hide there pretty quick. Now, be able to approach your door from the outside and be certain that there's not an intruder waiting for you. Don't have anything they can hide in order to accost you. Now, place the gifts where they cannot be seen from the outside of your home. And, of course, it goes without saying, avoid opening the door to strangers. And also, watch out for those porch predators who steal delivered packages. See, one thing you can do is you can have them delivered elsewhere if possible, maybe to your office or to a friend who's more likely to be at home. Now, in my home, we've installed cameras so that we can catch those porch pirates if they come our way. Now, in your car, be sure you don't drive without first locking your doors and closing your windows. And when you walk out to your car, try not to do it alone. Again, go with a friend. And when you walk to your car, walk to it with purpose. Don't exit your car if you see a suspicious situation. If you're in a doubt or your approach, will just drive away. Make sure you pay attention, because that's the big of it all. Just pay attention. Be aware of your surroundings. Well, here's just a few holiday tips we hope that'll help you have a better holiday, and at least that you'll have a safe holiday. And now we're going to get, before we share with you our lessons on the trials of Rittenhouse and the Arbery Trial, I want to share with you the very worst Santa crime of all. And while some of this has been a little light, unfortunately, this one isn't. In 2008, there was a man by the name of Bruce Jeffrey Pardo. Well, unfortunately, he killed 8 people. Killed 8 people at a Christmas party on Christmas Eve. He started by firing on several partygoers and doused the house with an accelerant before lighting the whole thing on fire. Now, several guests, well, they passed away in the fire, while others were taken down by Pardo while they were trying to escape. Now, Pardo, he later took his own life at his brother's home just a few miles away there in California. Now, allegedly, Pardo's ultimate target, well, it was his ex-wife, who had just divorced him a few days earlier. She took $10,000, the house, and their dog in the divorce. And Pardo, he became depressed as a result, and then he went and did this terrible deed and took 8 lives. You see, my friend, that just needs to be another reminder of just how serious domestic violence can be. And of course, in the Brian Laundrie situation with little Gabby, we found that domestic violence is very, very, very dangerous. So if you do know someone who's going through domestic violence, let them know that it can be deadly. Show them your support and get them to get help. Have them call the local law enforcement agency. They'll help get you with people who can help you prepare a safety plan so that you can avoid domestic violence. Let that be the greatest tip of all today. Well, I mentioned to you that I'm going to say something to you about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and the Arbery trial, some lessons that we can learn. Now, there are a lot of lessons that can be learned in both of these situations, but the main lesson is this. You should not be getting involved in situations where you do not know all the facts. In the Arbery trial, these guys decided to chase this black young man that was jogging in the neighborhood because they had mere suspicion that he was involved in burglaries in the area. Mere suspicion is not enough. They did not have enough information. They did not have the facts. The same thing happened in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. The first guy charged him because he was just out of his mind and he wanted to do bodily harm to Kyle. The others, they came after him as well, stomping him in the head, hitting him with a skateboard. They may have thought that he was a mass shooter, but they had no reason to really think that he was a mass shooter. Again, they did not have the facts. So make up your mind that you're not going to get involved in situations that you do not have all the facts about those situations, and only get involved if it's absolutely necessary for you to do so. Most often, it's best to leave these things to the police, to law enforcement officials who've been thoroughly trained in how to handle these kind of situations. We say all of this on Charlie Crimebuster. We leave these safety tips and share true crime with tips that you can use and news you can use to help keep you and your family safe. Because the best thing about holidays is spending it with the people that you love. And how can you spend that with the people that you love if you're unsafe yourself? So until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you during these holiday times, be safe, be alert. For the life you save, well, it just may be your very own.